Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, and after 3 months of testing out these boots, I want to introduce you to the Muck Woody Blaze Cool Snake Boot. So I got these boots after talking to Muck at SHOT Show 2017, and like I said, I've been using these for the last 3 months, all summer long. You can see they are pretty scuffed up right there, but they have definitely held up for me. These boots have a full rubber exterior, and it's actually snake proof. So while that's not a huge issue for me in New Hampshire, because we don't have a ton of snakes up here, if you're in a place where you're trucking through swamps or marshlands and there's poisonous snakes out here, this boot is designed to keep you safe. So rubber is going to keep the water out, but the way it's put together, the way it's designed, and the strength of the rubber and the overall materials, it's going to be snake proof. So when it comes to running into copperheads, rattlesnakes, water moccasins, things like that, you're going to be all right with these boots. So this is kind of interesting. These are snake proof boots. I'm in New Hampshire. We're not known for having a ton of snakes here, but as I'm driving up the road, it's a water snake. Okay, so it's not a poisonous snake, and he's pretty small, but nonetheless, just want to show you that as I was working on the review for these boots, I saw a snake. If you look inside the boot, you can see that little blue logo that says Express Cool. So again, because these are a warm weather boot, the idea is that they're gonna help keep your feet cool. Now, all summer long, I wore these boots, and I purposely wore just like cotton socks because, when cotton gets wet, it usually doesn't dry out too quickly. But I wore these boots with cotton socks all summer long, and never when I took them off was I like, wow, my feet are soaking wet, they're totally sweaty. They stayed cool, despite the fact that I was out in humid weather, hot days, sometimes high 70s to the 80s to the 90s, depending on what the weather was that day. But a full range of temperatures, and I never came home thinking, man, my feet are just burning up inside these boots. I was a little bit skeptical when I first got them because, they look like essentially just a rubber boot. But that Express Cool, whatever it does, it makes a difference in keeping your feet relatively cool even in the warm weather. They have what they call a rugged waffle outsole. As far as this giving you grip when you're out in the woods, you're trekking out into the woods to do some hunting, to do some bushcrafting, to do some wilderness survival training, stuff like that, which I did this summer. These work great for that. So I was never putting myself in situations where I was totally dependent on the traction of a boot helping me to scale a mountain or something crazy. But general walking in the woods, uphill, downhill, wet rocks, wet leaves, these things worked really nicely for me. Here's what the boots look like on, and obviously I'm just standing on some leaves and dirt here. What I tend to do is right when I put the my jeans in, I fold them over just a tiny bit to get them in so they don't get too bunched and kind of falling over the top. But easy to put on, and you can see, my kneecap is right here. So we're talking, maybe 8 inches below the kneecap, which gives you a lot of coverage when it comes to brush. And then obviously when it comes to, getting into swampy or wet terrain, these things definitely kept me nice and dry. One of the projects I was working on this summer was taking some cattail leaves and weaving them into a basket. And so by the nature of where cattail is located, in marshlands, in swamps, I was actually out in swamps and gathering some of that stuff. So I even have some footage here of me standing in the water, kind of wading through the edge of a swamp. And just to tell you, it's not just theoretical that these things keep your feet dry. I tested them out and actually walked through the water and never had an issue with any kind of water leaking through the boot. I want to look at these 4 footwear options and just talk about some of the differences between them. Obviously on the far left is the Woody Blaze from Muck. Next to that we have a Keen Day Hiker. Next to that we have a Columbia winter boot. And then next to that we have kind of a desert boot, and that comes to us from LA Police Gear. So with the LA Police Gear boot, you're going to get good ankle support. It's going to be lighter weight than the Muck or the Columbia, but heavier than certainly like a running shoe, and also heavier than the Keen Day Hiker. So the disadvantage of those boots is that they're not really made for wet conditions. They can handle some moisture, but if you're out on a rainy, wet day, or if you're slogging through swamps or marsh, they're going to get wet quickly and keep your feet wet all day long. They're just not going to dry out really quickly. So that's something to be aware of with those. Next to that, we have the Columbia winter boot. Good for cold weather, but definitely big and clunky. And once again, I found that they're good for hiking out in the woods when your feet are, you're going to be active and you're going to be hiking for pretty much the whole day, or maybe snowshoeing. But if you're going to slow down, be sitting in a tree stand relaxing, even with those even though they're winter boots, they can keep your feet pretty warm while you're moving. Once you slow down, your feet are going to cool down pretty quickly. Next to that, we have the Keen Day Hiker, the most lightweight of all these, but they're going to give you the least resistance to moisture. You're not going to go walking through a swamp or across streams with those. They do give you a little bit of ankle support, but not nearly as much as the first two. Obviously, the Woody Blaze on the end, those are the highest. They're going to keep water out completely. They are good in the warm weather. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even on days when it was a little bit cooler, like in this early fall or, in the early spring, I'd be out there working on something sitting, and the weather would drop down maybe on the low end to 50s, maybe high 40s. And it's not like all of a sudden my feet were like, yeah, I'm getting cold. So they seem to kind of regulate from, even when it's hot, they keep you cool. And when it's a little bit cooler, they still keep you warm. For me, these boots did pretty much exactly what I needed them to do this summer. So I'd put them on, hike a mile or two out into the woods, set up a camp, maybe a shelter, get a fire going, cook some food, maybe fish a little bit, work on some survival or bushcraft skills. And in that type of use or that type of setting, these things just performed in an excellent way. So they kept my feet dry from, when I had to step into a stream. They kept my feet pretty cool considering it was summer weather, and I had essentially, like a rubber boot on. And while I wasn't concerned about snake bites, if I was in a situation where there are a lot of snakes around, obviously these would be an advantage as well. If I was going up to the White Mountains to hike, 10, 15 miles, climb a couple peaks, these are not the boots I would wear. But for what how they were used this summer for me, they fit right into that niche. Hiking out a mile or two, doing some, bushcraft, camping, wilderness survival stuff, and then hiking back a mile or two. So I imagine if you're like, hey, I want to do some hunting in the spring, the fall, certainly in the summer as well, these boots are definitely going to do the job. I have not had any significantly cold weather since I got these boots. So I'm thinking of them as like a 3-season boot, spring, summer, and fall. But I'll give them a run in the winter and we'll see how it goes. And I'm hoping to partner with Muck to check out some winter boots, maybe some rain boots, a couple other options out there, from straight up wilderness boots to more like an everyday type of boot as well. Overall, what I can tell you guys is that I used these consistently for 3 months. They held up and they did a really good job. Now they're going to be more of an investment. They're up around $200, a little bit less on Muck's website, but you're going to invest in them, and I think they're going to last you a really long time. So I would encourage you to check these boots out, and Muck seems to have a good reputation out there for making a quality boot. This is the first pair of Mucks I've ever used, and they've functioned really well. So now if you've used Muck boots before, you own a pair, maybe multiple pairs, leave a comment down in the comment section below. Tell us about them, what you like about them, and maybe even some improvements you would make, and I'll be certain to pass that information on to Muck. Thanks as always for checking out the videos. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram and Tumblr as well. As always, more videos coming soon. Take care. Cars always passing by.